Hi, welcome to my channel, The Roaming Knitter. Thank you for joining me, whether you are now a regular viewer or you're just finding me today. My name is Heather and I'm a knitter from the Cotswolds in the southwest of England, and I love to knit and potter around in my camper van with my co-pilot Ruby, who is just here, fast asleep after being in the park for a couple of hours this morning. I just started a knit and natter group with a friend in our local park. So that was really good fun, but Ruby was on her feet for about 2 hours. She wouldn't settle at all, so she's now absolutely exhausted. So she'll probably sleep through this whole podcast. I'm planning a really big trip away in the camper van in September, but for now we're just doing day trips and weekends away. And you will have seen in the intro that we recently went to the Forest of Dean, which is kind of on the border between England and Wales. And then we also went to Mid Wales. And we went to 2 yarn festivals, the Sodbury Yarn Over and Wonderwool Wales, which were great fun. And we got to see some really amazing scenery while we were away. I will mention later some of the things that I bought at the yarn festivals, although I didn't buy a jumper quantity of anything. I just bought a few little bits and pieces because I have enough yarn in my stash at the moment to tide me over for a while. So I have 6 finished projects and 4 whips to show you today. I've been busy. I think it's about 3 weeks since I last did a podcast, and I've been very busy knitting in that time. So yes, lots to talk about. So let's get cracking. So the first thing is my first finished object, which is what I'm wearing. And this is my mum's juice sweater. I mentioned it in my last podcast. She saw my red and pink one, which I've got here actually. I made a red and pink stripy juice sweater, absolutely loved it, and my mum really liked it as well, so she asked me to knit one for her, and this is it. I'll put a picture up here of me wearing it out in the park. She did give me permission to wear it. She's not actually seen it yet. I haven't managed to see her, to give it to her since I finished, which was just a few days ago. So she's really looking forward to seeing it and trying it on. The juice sweater is a pattern by Veronica Lindberg, also known as Kutovakika. And in hers, she doesn't have stripes. I decided to do that for my red and pink jumper. And I left this bit at the top because I wasn't really sure on my last one how to get the stripes to come sort of straight out of the collar and not mess it up. So I decided to sort of just do one solid colour till here and then start the stripes. And then I knew that I was kind of safe. And it's knitted top down with increases kind of in 8 sections all the way around the yoke. I think you can see them fairly clearly at the front here. On my red jumper you couldn't see them because the yarn was quite variegated, or the colour was variegated, but here you can see them quite clearly, I think, just down here. And I think they create a really nice decorative feature. It has ribbed cuffs, which I've made slightly shorter on this one. I made my red one slightly too long, so I've shortened these. And I've also shortened the rib on the hem, and it has a split hem. I can probably show you. It's a little split there, but I've made this quite short on this jumper just to get it the right length for my mum. But yeah, I'm really happy with it. I've used 4 different yarns for this jumper. I've held 2 strands together for each colour. So I have these 2 blues, or these 4 blues actually. This is the darker stripe, and this is Cascade 220 in the colour Niagara Blue, and this is Drops Kid Silk in the colour Light Jeans Blue, I think it's called. Yeah, I think it's Light Jeans Blue. And for the lighter stripe, I have Drops Baby Merino in the colour Dew and Drops Kid Silk in the colour Light Steel Blue. So yeah, those are a really good match. These not so much. They were kind of as close as I could get. And it does give a very slight marling, but it's barely noticeable. And I think it's a really good colour combination. I'm very happy with that. My mum's very happy with that as well. So it's worked out really well. I've knitted this one in a size medium, which is the same size as my pink and red one. And it has a finished bust size of 120 centimetres, but it's actually come up at about 110 centimetres, which is more like a small, but that's fine. It fits me perfectly, and I'm pretty sure it'll fit my mum perfectly as well. It's supposed to have between 20 and 30 centimetres of positive ease. I think it's got slightly less, but that's good. I didn't gauge swatch as I was just repeating previous jumper, and I knitted it on 4.5mm needle. That's a US 7, which is what the pattern calls for. If anyone has any tips on how to manage yarn when you're doing stripes, I'd really appreciate it, because I was cutting the yarn after each stripe because it seemed like too many rows to just keep kind of threading it up the stripe. But it was an awful lot of ends to weave in, and it sort of put me off doing another stripy project for a while. And I do love stripes, but it was just a lot of work. And you know, you get to the end of a jumper and you think, oh, I've finished. And then there's just a huge amount of work to do afterwards to get it ready, particularly when it's a gift for somebody else. I think if it was for me, I wouldn't bother too much about weaving in the ends, but you know, it's a gift, so I wanted to do it properly. But yeah, that was just a huge amount of work at the end. And I'm wondering if there's just another way of doing it. I'm really pleased with the results. So yeah, I definitely would knit another one of these. And my next finished project is my Jilli Jacket by Anne Wenzel. I've actually done a project vlog on this, which I released 2 weeks ago. So if you're interested in all the details, then you can go and watch that. I will link it below. I've got it here. I shall pop a photo up as well of me wearing it. But yeah, this was a really fantastic project. I really enjoyed it. The pattern was easy to follow. I learnt loads. So I learnt to do an Italian or a tubular cast on, and then a twisted rib, used twisted rib for the collar. I'd never done that before, so that was really interesting to learn. I also had never done a double knit button band, so that was fun. And also I kind of got to grips with German short rows, which are used to obviously raise the height of the back, but also it has a curved hem at the bottom of the back, and that's done using German short rows. And somehow having the German short rows go downwards rather than upwards, if that makes sense, just made it kind of make sense a little bit more why you do German short rows and how they work. So yeah, that was a really good sort of learning process, this jacket. And I have worn this so many times since I knitted it. I think I finished it maybe 3 weeks ago, or just less than 3 weeks ago, and I wear it every day to walk the dog. I've had loads of comments. I've met a couple of people who are knitters who've said they'd like to knit one as well. Yeah, just really good, really enjoyed it. I knitted this in Kremke Soul Wool Reborn, which is a 65% wool, 35% recycled textiles. It's fantastic. I think I've got a skein of it here. This is it. It's just really fantastic. I'll show you it up close. So it's kind of tweedy. This colour is called Blue Indigo Melange. It's a really dark navy, but it has these flecks, sort of pink, well, red, green, blue flecks, which I think come from the recycled textiles. And it's really lovely for a kind of structured project like this, because it's quite stiff. It's quite a stiff yarn. I knitted this on a 5mm needle, which is a US 7. I think that the pattern actually suggests a 4.5, but I didn't get gauge. I did get gauge with a 5mm, but since I've blocked this and I've had a look at my gauge again, I've actually got pretty much bang on gauge with the knitting back and forth sections for the body. I got 17 stitches and 24 rows, whereas the pattern calls for 17 stitches and 25 rows. But on these sleeves, which were knitted on circular needles, I got 18 stitches and 26 rows. So I'm a little bit tighter on the sleeves, which is no bad thing because these sleeves are enormous. So if I'd actually got gauge, I would have got even bigger sleeves. And as you can see, they've got twisted rib for a section and then a section of stockinette, so the cuff rolls over like that. And yes, this yarn is absolutely wonderful. I'm so in love with this yarn that and this pattern actually, that I'm going to knit another one for kind of later in the autumn. I'm thinking that I'm going to knit a coat version of it. So I'm just going to basically do the same thing, but I'm just going to make it a lot longer, and I might even add pockets or something. And I'm going to do that in the Kremke Soul Wool as well, because I really, really like the feel of it. I like how it's worked so well for a kind of structured jacket rather than a cardigan. And one of the best things about this yarn is the price. So this is Aran weight, should have said that earlier. This is an Aran weight jacket, and the skeins are 100 grams, you get 200 meters. And I used 7 skeins. I just went into an 1/8, but I didn't need to do that because actually I had a bit of a tangle of yarn that I could have used. So I could have got away with 7. So 700-gram skeins, and the total cost of this jacket to knit, including the pattern and the buttons, was £55, which is about $75 US, which is incredible. I think it's such a big garment as well. You know, it's an outerwear garment, and at that price is quite incredible. So I would highly recommend this yarn. I think it's fantastic, and I'll definitely be using it again. And yeah, I'm really pleased with this. I think this was my most challenging knit so far, and I feel like it's given me loads more confidence to try more challenging knits. I feel like I've gone up a notch in my knitting ability. So yeah, I would highly recommend this. Sorry, just a quick interruption from me a few days later, as since I recorded this podcast, the lovely people at Soulwool have offered me an affiliate link for their website. So if you fancy trying the Kremke Soulwool that I've been raving about, or anything else from their website, you can use my affiliate link below to get 10% off your order. Of course, there's absolutely no pressure at all, but if you attempt it anyway, it's a nice way to support my channel and treat yourself to some beautiful yarn at a great price. Soulwool stock lots of yarn brands, including BC Garn, Sandnes Garn, Lang Yarns, and Manos del Uruguay. So it's well worth a browse if you're in the mood for some yarn inspiration. I'll pop the link below for you, and now back to the knitting. And if that one gets a massive thumbs up, the next one unfortunately gets a massive thumbs down, and that's the Ivy Blouse by Petite Knit. I was really looking forward to this. This was going to be something that I would wear to work every day, and I loved the yarn and loved the pattern. I've seen loads of people knit it. They all look amazing, but for some reason mine just turned out not very nice at all. I don't know if it's my body shape or it's partly the yarn. I think the yarn was the wrong colour for me. I'll pop a picture here so you can have a look at it. I don't actually have it anymore. Yeah, just not really my thing. I think I should have thought more about the yarn, and I should have thought more about the shape of it. So I have a little bit of a problem with things up here. I mean, this jumper comes up to roughly the same place, but for some reason it doesn't bother me. But the Ivy Blouse does come up quite high and rolls over, and it was just really irritating my neck. It's also boxier and wider than I think it should have been. The pattern says it should have 2 centimetres of positive ease, but actually I wanted a little bit more than that. I don't really like tight fitting garments, so I just went up one size, and also I was a little bit off gauge, so I went up a needle size as well. And I think that maybe just was a mistake. Perhaps I didn't need to go up the needle size, because I've ended up with something that is too big for me. But yeah, just really, I don't know, not flattering at all. The yarn is Isaiah Jensen, and it's in the colour brown. And it is a really beautiful colour. I really love the colour of it. It's got kind of a sort of sandy colour. I said in my last podcast, it's the colour of a barnacle or a limpet. It's kind of got grey tones, but it also has some warm tones. And I need warm colours. I'm definitely a warm colour person. But it does have quite a lot of warm colours in it. But when I wear it, I don't know if it's because it's the same colour as my hair or the same colour as my skin tone, but it just seems to wash me out a little bit, and it looks a bit meh. Just don't know. So yeah, really loved the yarn. I was worried that it was slightly prickly while I was knitting with it, but actually it softened up in blocking, and it feels okay on, slightly scratchy, but I think I could wear it. But it just, yeah, wrong colour, wrong shape of garment, I don't know, and definitely the wrong neck style. I won't ever knit a rolled neck again. I think I just need a slightly wider neck for my comfort as much as anything. I think I'm quite sensitive to, I don't know what you'd call it, kind of sensory issues. I do have a little bit of, I don't like the way things touch my skin sometimes, but yeah. So yeah, just a bit of a disaster. I think it's a great pattern. It was really easy jumper to knit. I would love to knit something like that again, because it was a really good mindless project. I could take it anywhere with me. I didn't really have to concentrate much on it. It's knitted top down. It's got raglan increases that were really straightforward. It's got a small section of a saddle shoulder and then into the raglans. Yeah, and with the rolled neck, which is basically just an unfinished neck, an unfinished hem and unfinished cuffs. just a really, really simple pattern, but yeah, just wrong for me. So I took it to our knit and natter group, and one of the ladies there really loved it. She tried it on, fits her perfectly, so she's bought it off me, which is fantastic. So I've now got the money to spend on something else. So that was a win-win, really. Not so much of a disaster now. Before I get to my next finished object, if you're enjoying this video, I'd really appreciate it if you could give it a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed, it would be great if you could. I've been completely blown away by the number of subscribers I've got so far. I thought it would take me forever to get to 1,000 maybe, but last weekend I hit 5,000, and that just completely blows my mind. And I was planning, you know, years in the future, maybe when I hit 5,000 subscribers, to do something special, and it's already passed, so I haven't had time to kind of organise what I'm going to do, but I will do something in my next podcast. I've got a little treat that I'd like to do as a giveaway, so if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe so that you don't miss that, and you can be in with a chance of winning. And yeah, I really appreciate everybody who's subscribed already and all your really fantastic, kind comments. This is the most amazing community. I can't imagine that there is any other community online that is as lovely as the knitting community. So thank you all. And yeah, my next finished project is my Kintra bag by Rebecca Clow. Somebody corrected me. I think in my last podcast I called her Rebecca Clow. And someone commented, it rhymes with snow. So that's my way of remembering it. Yeah, so this is my Kintra bag. So you will have seen it on my last podcast, and I'm really chuffed with this. It was my first colourwork project. I wanted to do something that was kind of fairly easy rather than doing a sweater. And yeah, just a really lovely pattern. It's knitted, so you start with this kind of rectangle, which is a double knitted base, so it's really nice and thick. And then you pick up stitches all the way around, and then you start the colourwork, which is just 2 colours in any one row. I've made a few mistakes, but I really don't. If I wiggle it around a bit, you can't see. But it was mainly because when I first started, I had a red and an orange, and they're too close in colour. So I then switched my red out for this darker red that I'd used on the base. So I've got a weird kind of line here without the red in it, but I don't think many people would notice that. And then you knit up to the top, you fold this over, and then you sew it down. You can see there, I'm quite pleased with that because it's almost invisible on the outside, and then it's nice and neat on the inside, and my sewing usually isn't very good. And then you knit an I-cord, which I'd never done before. That was nice and easy. Just kind of 3 stitches that you just keep knitting back and forth, kind of. You slide them along the needle, and then you just thread those through. And yeah, I'm really pleased with it, and it's nice and neat on the inside. I was thinking that I might line it, but yeah, I've said this before, I'm quite lazy, and I feel like this is finished now, so maybe I won't. But yeah, I'm absolutely delighted with this, and I'll definitely make another one. I'm thinking I might make a bigger one, but I've started using this as my sock project bag, and yeah, it's really lovely. And I used some yarn that I bought on Vinted, and it was just kind of sold to me as just a job lot of, it said it was hand spun yarn, and it was 100% wool, and it's really scratchy. It probably wouldn't be very nice as a garment, but it's perfect for this. It feels quite sort of solid and durable. And then I also had, so those were this kind of red and yellow and orange colours. And then I also had some Jameson and Smith, some of their, I think it's called 2-ply jumper weight, which is actually a 4-ply weight. The blue and the white was stuff that I already had in my stash. So I just, added those. And yeah, I'm really delighted with that. I think it's a really nice little project. It was a really easy pattern to follow. And my next finished project is on the floor. And it is Ruby's Settle, well, I'm calling it a Settle mat. I kind of described it in my last podcast, I think, as like a sit mat. So when I went to Norway, I found a felted sit mat in the woods that had just been lost or discarded or something. And I used it loads, and I was using it for Ruby to sit down on when I went to cafes and pubs and that kind of thing. But it was just a little bit small for her, so I decided that she needed a bigger one. And I made this. Which is a felted settle mat, that's what I'm calling it. Ruby's felted settle mat. I knitted this in Drop Snow, and I basically made it looked like a huge blanket. So the finished size of it was 32 inches wide, 32 inches tall, so it's a square. And I had absolutely no idea how big to make it or how big it was going to turn out when I felted it. But yeah, so I just made this huge thing. I just knitted some stripes. In fact, that's actually the back side there. So this is the front side of it. I just knitted random stripes, just did whatever I felt like doing. I did it on 8mm needles, and it took me weeks to do this. Well, I say weeks, it's obviously no more than 3 weeks because that's when I did my last podcast, but it took me a really long time to knit it. I just felt like I was knitting forever. And then when I finished it, I didn't really know what to do to felt it. I'd kind of looked at what people did with the sailor slippers. There'd been lots of those knitted, and they were mostly using Drop Snow, so I kind of looked at what they'd done. The thing is, I only have a washer dryer, so it has a kind of drying cycle at the end of a wash cycle. You can put it on as a separate dry cycle, but it does a weird thing where when you start the dry cycle, the first thing it does is put some water in, and then it does it spins for ages, and then you can suddenly hear the heat starting. So not as controllable as a normal tumble dryer where you could just whack it in for 10 minutes and see how it turned out. So the first thing I did was I washed it on a 60-degree cycle. I just did a full 60-degree cycle. And when it came out, it shrunk by about 2 inches. So, and you could still see the stitch definition. It hadn't really changed a huge amount. It just looked like something had gone wrong with it. So I then decided to put it on a tumble dry cycle. So I just did this tumble dry bit, and I just let that run. I think it runs for about an hour and a half, and I was thinking that it might come out like pub beer mat sized or something like that, but actually it barely changed at all. So I was a little bit confused at that point. And then I noticed that my washing machine has a 90-degree cycle on it, and I thought, bit of a risk, but let's give it a go. So I stuck it in on a 90-degree cycle, and this is what happened. And this is absolutely perfect. So I think I probably should have just done that the first time. So it now measures, I think it's 21 inches wide and 18 inches deep. So it's kind of, shrunk in it shrunk more across the width. No, it shrunk more in height than it did across the width. But the fabric is great. Let me show you the right side of it. The fabric, it almost looks like a rug. It's lost all its stitch definition, and it's about, I don't know, it's like ½ an inch thick, but it's still flexible enough that I can kind of just fold it up into a bag, which is perfect. It's exactly the size that I wanted it to come out, and I think it was a bit of luck really that it came out exactly this size, but yeah, I'm really pleased with this. And I didn't really worry too much about weaving in my ends. So I did weave in the ends, but instead of kind of following the stitch pattern like you're supposed to, I literally just got my needle and I just pushed it straight along one of the lines, pulled it out the other side, cut it. So it was quite loose, but that's worked perfectly. And actually somebody in the comments from my last video when I talked about knitting this, actually said that you don't have to weave in the ends at all if you're felting. You can just leave them dangling, then felt it, and then just cut them off because they're not going to come undone. So actually that's a really good idea, and I'm going to make another one of these, and but a smaller size for me, and I think I'll do that. I won't bother sewing in the ends. And I made several mistakes as well, actually, which you can't see anymore, which is brilliant. In one place, I actually completely forgot that I was just knitting garter stitch. So the whole thing was knitted garter stitch. And I forgot that I was doing garter stitch. And I did a purl row, and I'd cast on 100 stitches. And there was no way I was going to undo 100 stitches. So I just thought, you know what, it's going to shrink anyway, so I'll just leave it. And, if I feel it, I can just about feel that there's a slight difference. But, no one's going to notice that. And Ruby is completely and utterly underwhelmed by this. She kind of walked over to it and sniffed it the first time I put it down on the ground, and then wandered off and sat somewhere else. But I did notice this morning I put it down in the park for her, and loads of other dogs came and sat on it. They all seemed to really enjoy it. And by the end of the 2 hours that I was there, she was actually sitting on it. So I think she'll get used to the fact that this is her mat. And I haven't actually been to a cafe or a restaurant, so I've not been able to kind of tell her, sit there, that's your mat. But yeah, really happy with this. So it's dropped snow, and one of the issues with dropped snow, and it wasn't a very pleasant thing to knit, I have to say. 8mm needles I don't really like, and it hurt my hands, and I think that's just dealing with the big needles. And also my 8mm circular needles are really short. They're probably only about 4 inches long, and it just didn't seem to have kind of enough support for my hands. So I just found that knitting process wasn't very pleasant. And drop snow is a single ply. I don't know if you've ever used it, but it's kind of very loosely spun, and it's really easy to stick the needle in the middle of it. And that happened a lot, which meant that although it should have been, it was just garter stitch project, it should have been a mindless project. It wasn't. I couldn't watch TV and knit this very easily unless I was listening to something. I quite like documentaries, so that's fine. I can listen rather than watch. But I had just had to watch all the time that I wasn't sticking the needle in between those threads, which is a bit of a pain. So I think if I was going to do another one, I might try another yarn. I think Drops have another yarn. I can't remember which one it is, maybe Nepal, that is similar to this, similar weight. So I might try that. But yeah, I mean, it's just, it's a kind of easy project to do. Just, yeah, it did hurt my hands, and I do have a problem with my thumb at the moment, and I'm pretty sure that that is because of this project. So it'll be a while before I do one for me. But yeah, really successful. And I'm actually going to do a project vlog for this, which I hope will be out next weekend, just to show the whole process. So if you're interested in making one, then just, yeah, have a look on my channel and watch that one if you're interested. But yeah, that was great. That was really good. And my last one is a pair of socks, which I hadn't cast on last time. These are brand new pair of socks. So these are my second socks, and this was a yarn that I bought on Vinted, and I don't really know what it is. It just was advertised as a merino sock wool, but I really loved the colours. I thought that was really nice, and yeah, it's come up really nicely. They fit perfectly. So this is the I'm So Basic sock by Summer Lee, and I did the size large because I have really wide feet. So I did the size large, which is 64 stitches, I think, and I just did a 2x1 rib at the top. I was going to do a contrast colour for the cuff, the toe and the heel, but I didn't really have anything that went with this. And actually at Wonderwool last weekend I bought this skein, which was in a sort of discount bin. It was 100 grams and it was £5, I think, and this would be really good for, that would have been a really good contrast colour for the toes and heels. So I might make another one as I've got some more yarn and do a contrast. But on this one I actually followed Summer Lee's videos. She has some YouTube videos, and she's got one for each of the kind of sections of it. So she has one for the top section, and then she does the heel flap and gusset as one video, and I just was kind of knitting along as she was talking about it, and the way she describes it just makes the whole thing make more sense, I suppose. She was describing, the heel flap and where that is on the sock, and then the gusset and what you're actually trying to achieve. And then she has a separate video for the toe, but I found that quite straightforward. So yeah, I was really happy with this. And I think on one of my previous podcasts, I talked about some yarn that I had that I was going to knit. I was going to knit this sock. So I had this lovely pink colour left over from something else, and I had this yarn, another yarn that I bought on Vinted. Didn't really know what it was just a sock yarn. And I started knitting this sock and I really liked it. Thought that was great. And then when I got down to I actually did the heel flap and gusset. And when I tried it on, it was too small. This isn't very flexible, this bit here. I don't know if that's probably just the yarn, but it didn't fit. So I had to start again, and this was a 64 stitch one. I went down to a small size, I think, and it completely changed how the yarn behaved. So I've only done a small section of this one, But instead of having nice stripes, which I got on this one, I got this awful colour pooling. And I think that was just the way the extra couple of stitches, you know, having gone up to and the next size up, those few extra stitches was enough to break the pattern of the yarn. So I ended up with some weird stripes on this side, which go into that section. I don't know, it's just awful, just looked really bad. And that similar thing has happened with these actually. So in the top section, it's quite stripy. So that's 64 centimeters in that top section. Then I've done my heel flap and gusset, and then I've gone back to, after my decreases, 64 stitches, but this time it's pulled. And I don't really understand that. So if you're a sock expert, now I know there are lots of you out there who are, can you tell me why the colour is pulled, even though it's the same number of stitches? I've got weird stripes here, because I don't like that anywhere near as much as I like the top bit. I mean, it doesn't matter because that bit's going to be in my shoe anyway. But why has that happened? That would be really interesting to know. So yeah, if you're a sock knitter, please tell me. But anyway, I'm really happy with those. That's my second set of socks. And I think that this got me bitten by the sock bug, because as soon as I finished these socks, they literally came off the needles. I did the Kitchener stitch on the toe, and then I immediately just cast on another pair. And then when I went to Wonderwall, I bought a second needle. So I'm using the Chowgu, they're called shorties, because I've tried Magic Loop and I've tried DPNs, and I don't like either of those really for sock knitting. I quite like just being able to just go in the round. And I bought a second needle so that I could knit both socks at the same time. But I'm also thinking that actually, now that I've got two needles, I could make two completely different socks. But anyway, I'll talk about that when I come to my whips. Yeah, so very happy with these socks. Would definitely knit that pattern again. I was going to try a different heel construction, but my last pair fit so well that I thought, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah, very happy with those. And that was my last finished project. So now on to my works in progress. I was really impressed with myself with my whips this time, because I actually cast off all of those finished projects that you've just seen before I cast on anything new, which is completely unlike me. I've normally got loads of things on the go, and I quite happily will cast something on when I've only got maybe an hour's work to go on something else. But I didn't do that this time. I just decided to clear everything. I felt a little bit overwhelmed by how many whips I had, and yeah, I just thought, right, I'm just going to deal with all of those, like almost like a clean slate, and then start something new. And then also I did a spring knitting pattern, a spring knitting plans video a few videos ago, and I'd got quite a lot of t-shirts on that, and I was thinking about knitting some vests in the summer and that kind of thing. But then we got some quite warm weather. We've had a few days that have been 20, 21 degrees here in the UK, really lovely days, but I was really hot. And I run hot anyway. I'm in that kind of tropical phase of my life. And yeah, I just thought, I'm not going to wear knitted garments in the summer, so maybe I'd just be wasting my time doing that. And then also because I've got my trip in September coming up, and my plan is to spend around about 3 months in Scandinavia, and that will be going into their winter season. And I might just be wasting my time now knitting t-shirts when I could be knitting sweaters that I can take with me on my trip. So that's what I decided I was going to do. I was going to start with sweaters. And one of the sweaters in my spring knitting plans, which is a fairly lightweight one, is the Squam sweater by Elizabeth Doherty. So I decided to cast that on first. And this is a colourwork yoke. It has a colourwork yoke, but it's actually not stranded colourwork. It's a slip stitch pattern where you only use one colour yarn in any one row. And I thought, you know, I've never done a stranded colourwork project before. Rather than go straight into that for a sweater, I thought I'd do this because this seemed like a sort of easier project really. So yeah, I decided to do that, and the pattern is knitted in Pearl Soho good wool. We don't actually have a UK stockist for Pearl Soho. I did contact them to find out whether I could buy it in the UK, and I couldn't. and I saw all the sales and things that were being advertised online, so I just decided to just go for it and buy it and have it shipped over here. And I think the shipping cost me £17 or something, so it wasn't horrendous. It's not a particularly cheap wool, but I thought it would just be really nice to knit something in the exact yarn that the designer has designed it for, and then I'll have the garment that I'm looking at on the pattern photos. And I love the kind of relaxed, sort of casual vibe of this one. And I just thought, right, I'm gonna knit that, and I'm gonna knit it in the yarn that she suggests. So that's what I've done. So I ordered the Pearl Soho, and I haven't got all of the colours here, but I've ordered this, which is called Winter Grass. This is called. It's a kind of a warm beige, I suppose. It's really beautiful. And then the contrast colours are this one, which is Teal Twilight, I think that's called. And then I've caked the others up. So this one is Desert Blue, sort of pale blue, and it's got some really nice kind of heathering in it. And then this one is called Wild Mustard. So it's basically those colours together. And I absolutely love those colours. I think they're gorgeous. And this is where I've got to so far. That's what I've done so far. So this is the neck, which looks odd because it's very wide. It looks like the bottom of the jumper, but it's actually the neck, and you do the collar afterwards, and you knit top down and doing the yoke first. And I have actually tried it on, and it does feel like once I get the collar on, it will be fine. And yeah, so it's got this slip stitch pattern. So you basically do one row of slip stitches, alternating slip stitches and knit stitches, and then you do another row of just knit. But it's actually way more difficult than it looks. Well, it is. I found it way more difficult than it looks, because you actually, when you slip the stitches, sometimes you slip them with the yarn in the back, and sometimes you slip them with the yarn in the front, and that is messing with my brain. It's really frying my brain. And I have been making mistakes and not noticing them because it's actually really hard to read. There doesn't seem to be a really obvious design to it. I really love it, and I think that the great thing about it is that it is quite forgiving, so you might not be able to see my mistakes. I can see them, but most of them on the back, which is great. But I did actually, these are my first 2 attempts. So I can't even remember what I did wrong. I think the first one I started on the wrong size needles, just not reading the pattern properly. And actually this pattern is 17 pages long, and you know, I'm not very good at following instructions at the best of times, but you know, when I want to cast on a jumper, I don't want to sit and read 17 pages of a pattern. So I kind of skim read it, and I missed the fact that there were 4 different sizes of needles. So you do one needle size, I can't even remember which size needle it is. I think maybe a 3.5mm or 3.75 for the start of the yoke, and then you change to, I think I'm doing the colour work is on a 4.5, I think. And then the stockinette bit for the rest of the body is on a 4mm needle. And doing a gauge swatch was a bit of a nightmare because you have to do that with the pattern, and I did the pattern wrong. But anyway, I think what I've done so far I'm really happy with. It's taking a very long time. So it's now, I think I'm up to almost 400 stitches, and it's taking me nearly half an hour to do one of the slip stitch rows. So this is going to be on my needles a long time, I think. And yeah, I should have said that the Pearl Soho good wool is sport weight, or it says sport weight or light worsted DK, and it feels lighter than the DK to me. And all these, in case you're wondering, all of these markers, is she's got this really good plan where she says if you put markers at regular intervals, then each time you come to a marker on the slip stitch rows, you should be doing a particular colour. If you hit a marker and you're not doing that colour, you're doing the other colour, you know you've made a mistake. So then you only need to kind of tink back those stitches instead of doing a whole row. I still managed to make mistakes, but it's definitely helping me just to keep a track of where I am, which is really good. So yeah, I'm really happy with that. I'm really looking forward to getting that finished, but yeah, it's going to take me a while. And I was just going to work on that, But then a very kind lady called Monica from Switzerland gifted me a pattern which was in my Ravelry favourites because it was also one of her favourites. And it wasn't in my spring roundup patterns, but it's been in my favourites for a while. And that's the Shoreline Tee by Ozetta, which is a kind of subtle cable pattern t-shirt. And I had planned at some point to make it as a t-shirt. Now I'm thinking that I might actually knit it as a sweater, because there is a sweater version of it, but this is a lighter version. And so, yeah, so Monica gifting me that pattern. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. It's really kind of you. And it did spur me on to start knitting. I cast it on pretty much the day that I got that pattern. And also because when I ordered my Pearl Soho yarn, I thought if I'm going to be ordering yarn, I might, from all the way from America, I may as well order some more. So I actually decided to, with the Teal Twilight, which I really love, and get a close-up of that, it's really gorgeous colour. I just decided to order another load of this, and I was planning to make another squam sweater, and instead of using the winter grass colour as the main colour for the body, I'd knit another one and I'd make that the main colour, and I'd use the contrast colours, the same contrast colours, but use that as one of them as well. So if you see what I mean. So I'd end up with two squam sweaters that have got the same design but would be very slightly different. But having been gifted this pattern, which also called for a sport weight yarn, I thought I'm going to do it in this. That would be really lovely, and I've got enough. So this is where I am so far. So I've just done, it's got the saddle shoulder, and then you pick up stitches here for the back. And I really love how where you pick up the stitches, I don't know how well you can see this, but how those cables look so neat across there, and they kind of hide where you pick up the stitches. Yeah, so that'll be the neck. This is the back. And then I'm assuming that I'm going to knit down until I get to the point where I would be joining for the underarms, and then I probably will pick up stitches across here and knit the front the same way. So it's a drop shoulder. I don't know if I can put it on, kind of put it on, show you what's going to happen here. So that's the back section. So the drop shoulders come down to about here. And I didn't actually get gauge. That's not true. I did get gauge. It was quite hard to count the rows and the stitches with this cable pattern, but I did get gauge. But then when you measure the length of this, she does say approximately a lot, so I wasn't too worried about it. This is actually 3 centimetres longer than it should be. But when I look at the pattern, it does look like it sits in roughly the same place as it does on the pattern. So I'm not worried about it at all at this stage. I was thinking that I might start again, and I think she said this needed to be 20 centimetres and I got 23, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to carry on, because if I knit this as a sweater rather than a t-shirt, then it doesn't really matter if it's a little bit oversized. But yeah, and I love this cable pattern. It's really simple. It's my first, well, it's not my first cable pattern actually, because I did that onesie that I talked about in a previous podcast, so I had a nightmare. This is my first successful cable pattern. And it is quite simple. It's only 3 stitches. So I'm really enjoying it. And also there are 14 rows or something between the cables. So you get a good chunk of stockinette to do. And then you do 1 cable row and then another load of stockinette and then 1 cable row. So it's really, really nice to knit. It's quite mindless. And yeah, I'm really enjoying that. Love this colour. Love this pattern, and really grateful to Monica for gifting it to me, and I'm looking forward to knitting it up. Right, so my last 2 very quick projects, my last 2 whips, is a pair of socks. As I mentioned, as soon as my last socks were off the needles, I decided to cast another pair on, and I'm doing these little stripy socks. And yeah, I've already made a mistake with these, because actually I had some stash yarn left over from a previous project, which is the Drops Baby Merino, and I thought, oh, that would make a really nice pair of socks, really nice colours, I'll cast those on. And then realised when I got this far in that actually it's not a sock yarn, it's got no nylon in it, it's 100% merino. But then I thought, oh, you know what, I'll just carry on, because I'm most likely to just wear these in the house. I won't be wearing these out, I don't think. They might even end up as bed socks or something, just sitting around in the evening. So we'll just see how they last, really. But you know, if the worst comes to the worst, they'll wear out really quickly and I can knit another pair. So yeah, I'm happy with those. And then the very last one, just a really quick one, is a Sophie Scarf. And I've knitted 3 Sophie scarves now and I haven't got one myself, so I decided to just use up some stash yarn. This is Cascade 220. I think that's just in the colour red, but I'll put the colour on the screen. And this is Alpaca Blaze by Hobby. And I used this, these 2 colours were in my, this one was in my pink and red jumper, my juice sweater. And I've got about 4 balls left over and I bought these on Vinted, so I just thought that I'd use them up. So yeah, it's just a red Sophie scarf, nothing too interesting. But it's the first one I've made with no mistakes so far, although I'm only halfway, so there's still time for me to make a mistake. And that's it for my whips. I've got a couple of upcoming projects, so I'll now tell you about those. My first upcoming project, things that I'm about to cast on my needles, is the Lango vest by Kit Couture. And I got some of this lovely yarn, which is called Auring Kakera. And I got that in a charity shop. And I've got an amazing haul from the charity shop, which I mentioned in the last podcast. But I decided I'm going to knit a Lango vest with this. I've got enough. I think I've got 4 skeins of this. But I want to do something a bit different. And I saw It Is Sarah as a podcaster in Netherlands that I really love watching. She made a different vest actually, but she combined 2 vests, so a vest pattern, then a flower pattern, and then she put the 2 together to make this really beautiful knitted vest. And I want to do the same thing, so I'd like to do the main colour, this one, and then I'd like to do a kind of low contrast colour to do a design just around the bottom section of it. So that's what I'm planning to knit. And actually in my comments for my last video, a lady from Finland told me that the name of this yarn actually means sun spinner, or it spins around the sun, which I thought was really lovely. And the colour is called Metsä. And apparently that means forest. And I really like it when people tell me things like that. Somebody else from New Zealand told me that in New Zealand charity shops are called opportunity shops, or they call them op shops. And I really like that. I love the idea that a charity shop is an opportunity. You know, it's an opportunity for the person who goes in and gets a bargain. It's an opportunity for the person who put the yarn there in the first place, or whatever it is, clothing or whatever, to get rid of things that they don't need anymore. And then it's also an opportunity for those people who are benefiting from the money that's raised. So I think that's really fantastic. So that's great. And my last cast on that I've planned already is the terrazzo bag by Petite Knit. And I decided to do that because it calls for an Aran weight yarn, and in the pattern photo she's got sort of tweedy yarns that she uses. And I've got a skein left over from my Jilli Jacket, which is Aran weight and also tweedy. And so I picked up another 2 skeins of the sole wool that I used for the Jilli Jacket from Wonderwool at the weekend, and I'm going to knit the terrazzo bag in that. And I saw that one of the other podcasters that I watch, Sophie Knits Daily, she's just recently made a terrazzo bag and it's really beautiful. So I thought, well, I'm going to give that a go. Although I did see on the pattern details that it has Petite Knit has given it a 4 out of 5 difficulty. And when I looked at some other people's projects, one of the first people I came across who'd written some notes said it's way more difficult than I was expecting. So I'm not expecting it to be an easy knit, but I thought I'd give it a go. I think that would be really good fun. And finally, I just thought I'd show you what I got from the festivals that I went to, Sodbury Yarn Over and Wonderwool. So I think I showed you. So Wonderwool didn't buy loads at all. I literally just bought that skein that I was telling you about earlier, and I bought these 3 little sock yarns that were in a bargain bin, just 20 grams. I think this one's 21 grams. So I'm going to use those for kind of contrast colours when I knit socks in the future. I thought it would be good to build up a little stash of sock yarn. So I bought that. And then at the Sodbury Yarn Over, I bought this really cute little tin, which I can put my stitch markers in. I started collecting my stitch markers. I showed you my camper van one last time in my last podcast. Got that one. And then I also bought this little, I don't know how well you can see that, this little U, multicoloured. And I also bought a little, I'll put this down, I bought a little dog paw print for obvious reasons. And that was it. I think that's all I bought. I feel like I should have been a bit better at supporting these festivals, but I just didn't want to buy lots of things that I don't need. I thought those were cute, so that's all I bought. And that's it for me for this podcast. Thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate all the comments that you leave. I love hearing about what you're knitting. If you've knitted any of the things that I've mentioned in this podcast, or if you're planning to, I'd love to hear that, and anything else you're knitting, and any advice you have as well. If you've got some advice, that would be really gratefully received. And if you can give me a thumbs up and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, Em. Bye.